Ready.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Saner, and today I'm presenting Age as a Disparity, Reflections on the W.K. Kellogg Foundation Grant on Teen Breastfeeding in Schools. First, we're going to talk about adolescence and breastfeeding. Then we're going to talk about the lessons that we learned from our W.K. Kellogg Grant on teen breastfeeding. And then we're going to talk about how we can better frame the message for adolescents. So first, adolescence and breastfeeding. The good news is our teen breastfeeding rate is at a historic low. It has been decreasing for quite a many years, and you can see on the graph that it is the blue line, and right now the age range of teens is the lowest of all birth rates, compared second only to those that are 40 to 44. And this rate has decreased 57% from 1991 and 11% in just the past 4 years. So the bad news is that the teen breastfeeding rate is kind of abysmal. There's a really large disparity in teen breastfeeding rate compared to the adult breastfeeding rate. As you can see, only 58.6% of those under 20 years, so those that are teenagers, ever started breastfeeding, whereas those that were 20 to 29, 75% of those women started breastfeeding, and women over 30, 84% started breastfeeding. And it gets even worse as you look at the duration. So only 17% of teenagers breastfeed compared to 40 and 60% of the older age groups. And only 4.3% of women breastfeed their babies for the full 12 months as recommended by the CDC, compared to 21 and 36% of older mothers. So most teens stop breastfeeding within 6 weeks of their babies being born. All U.S. mothers should have the opportunity to breastfeed their infants, and all infants should have the opportunity to be breastfed, said the U.S. Surgeon General, Regina Benjamin. And adolescent mothers have so much to gain from breastfeeding's benefits. There could be financial savings, increased intrapartum intervals, an easier return to pre-pregnancy weight, and decreased provider visits. And this is because there could be a decrease in ear infections, respiratory tract infections, and GI infections. So according to the literature, which is limited about teen breastfeeding, adolescent mothers are knowledgeable about breastfeeding's benefits. However, their transition to parenthood is unlike adult women, and they have different barriers to initiation and continuation than adult women do. So common barriers encountered by adolescents are nipple pain, perception of insufficient milk, time demands of school and work, desire for independence, embarrassment or privacy concerns, and the impact on their relationships. So let's talk about the W.K. Kellogg Foundation Grant, Teen Breastfeeding in Schools. So the Indiana Perinatal Network was awarded a grant by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation to build community support through breastfeeding. And the Indiana Perinatal Network started with 8 pilot sites to determine that if schools would be an appropriate point of contact to support adolescent mothers who choose to breastfeed as they return to school. During this grant, they provided schools with multi-user hospital-grade breast pumps. They developed breastfeeding curriculum for FACS classes. They developed relationship among schools, delivering hospitals, the WIC program, and the Breastfeeding Coalition. They identified local community resources for pregnant and parenting teens, and they distributed breastfeeding newsletters to schools and community partners. And at minimum, the community partners include WIC, and a delivering hospital, and the coalitions wherever they're available. And the newsletter contains the latest news and research about breastfeeding and success stories of Indiana hospitals and community organizations. So this definitely was a learning experience. We learned that the school schedule often creates challenges. The calendar and the school day, or the school calendar and the schedule of the school day make communication slow and difficult. Teachers are in the classroom the whole day, administrators are working in the schools, and so they really can only respond to external communication requests in the morning or after school is out of session, and that makes it difficult for people that are not on that schedule. Also, the school day schedule makes pumping very difficult for the teens. The teens have to miss the same classes every day or parts of the same class every day, and that makes it hard for them to keep up with their schoolwork, and that can frustrate their teachers. Additionally, there tends to be staff turnover with little or no overlap, so transitioning programs from year to year can be very difficult if any of the key faculty leave over the summer. And pregnant teens seem to be encouraged to take alternative schooling in the last few years, and so the school can lose contact with them. In addition, schools are often outsider wary, and so it's hard for an external organization to come in. The schools are protective of their teens and their teachers with good reason. Pregnant teens can be hard to find. They don't always identify themselves as pregnant, and so it makes it hard to provide services to them while they're pregnant. And also, as we mentioned earlier, those alternative schooling makes it hard for the schools to have contact with the teens once they're in those alternative programs. In addition, the attitudes of the adults that are working with the teens are often at odds with the attitudes of the teens themselves. Teen mothers are focused in the now. They want to move forward, and they really just want what's best for their babies. Whereas the adults in their lives tend to feel if the teens have failed, as if it's a shameful experience that should be hidden. We also had a variety of successes in non-traditional environments, which we were pleased to see. So there's a program in South Bend called the School Age Mother Program, and at a community or a technical school in Bedford, Indiana. But even in those places, there were still, those attitudes were running up against each other. But those two programs are doing some very great things and really supporting their pregnant and parenting teens, which is fantastic. So the teens taught us, and they taught each other what they needed to succeed, and this was just really great to see. So here I've got some pictures of teens that participated in the program in the participating schools. So this teen, this is a nurse, and Nurse Annie Potts at Arsenal Tech in Indianapolis, and she said so many of these young moms come back to school determined to provide their own milk for their baby. They try very hard, but there's very little or no support, and most of them stop within the first couple of weeks. This teen told us they're slick with bribing us with coupons for free stuff, but we're just moms who want the best for our babies. She said, the first 2 weeks were very challenging, and then once I got through that, I learned that it seems like my body was made to breastfeed. This teen said, there were too many rules in the hospital, too many people touching me, telling me what to do, not enough listening and information. And this was a common thing we heard from quite a few teens. Here's the lactation area at the Bedford School I mentioned earlier. On one weekend, the teacher who was in charge of the early childhood education program came in, and she painted the room on her own time with her own money, and she painted they had set up a rocker so that the teens that were pumping, their breast milk could sit there and look at this pretty, or be surrounded in this pretty blue room. It was the letter of the letters, or the color of the letters here. And then the wall that the rocker looked directly at, they painted brown, and then wrote these inspirational quotes on the wall just to support these teens, which was fantastic. This teen said, "I noticed around his first birthday that I still had droplets of breast milk coming from my breast, so I tried to make him breastfeed, and he just wasn't having it." And that was just kind of heartbreaking, you know. She really had enjoyed that bonding experience and wanted to feel that closeness again, but because of the surrounding barriers, she hadn't been able to carry it on for as long as she wanted. And Roxanne McFarland at Diploma's Daycare said, "We never used to see dads or even know who the dad was, and now we see dads participating in the care." And there's an example couple here for you. So obviously we need to continue the work with the schools to help them understand the needs of the breastfeeding students. But since most of you listening to this webinar are not working in a school setting, I wanted to talk to you about ways that you could support a young mother as she's deciding to and learning how to breastfeed her baby. So teens are at a different developmental stage and require more social support than older women. They require informational support, instrumental support, and emotional support. And in general, teens want nurses who support them by taking the time to ask what they already know. They want their nurses to listen to their concerns, to answer their questions, and to talk them through new situations. And so I ask you to be aware of your own biases, because while these sound like common sense, very doable things, the literature suggests that teens aren't getting this kind of support from their nurses and lactation consultants. So I ask you to be aware of your own biases, set them aside, and just recognize that these young mothers are individuals who really want to do the best thing for their infants. So let's talk about informational support you can provide for these teen mothers. So first, you want to initiate discussion as early in pregnancy as possible. And teens don't always identify that they're pregnant early, but as soon as you can start the discussion, the better. You also want to tailor the message based on what the teen already knows, and you want to address perceived barriers and highlight perceived benefits. So you want to start the conversation by asking, "Tell me what you know." And then you want to play up those barriers and address the things that she sees as negatives. And teens want to learn, not be told what to do. So you want to guide the teen into the discovery of the information on their own, maybe with guided internet searches or something like that, just to help them find the information and feel some empowerment about that. You also want to be sure that everybody on your team is giving a consistent message, and you want, and then based on their developmental stage, teens find short-term and social benefits might carry more weight. And so you are going to be a great source of information for these teens. There are very few resources directed at adolescents who would like to breastfeed, and it's kind of sad. They're just not going to stumble upon the right information or an appropriate resource that's directed to them at their level. And so they really need you to help frame the message. You can tell them that breastfeeding is less expensive and that once it's established, it's easy. There's no prep, there's no dishes. They're going to get back to their pre-baby weight faster. Their baby's less likely to get sick. And some teens are worried about their family members or their partner not being able to bond with the baby. So you can encourage them by saying that their father, the baby's father, and their grandparents and other family members can still bond with the infant by holding them, clothing them, diapering them, bathing them, singing them songs, all of those other things other than feeding. You also can provide instrumental support to these adolescents. You want to use a sensitive, hands-off approach to show her how, and then use verbal cues to help her as she tries it out for herself. A lot of these teens have never been in a hospital before, And so coming into the hospital where people are poking and prodding them and reaching out and touching them all of the time is just going to be startling to their senses. So if you can sit quietly in the chair next to them and show them how without touching them, and then sit there and help them while they try for themselves, that would really support the teens in a way that they would find helpful. You also want to provide the teens with choices so that she can choose what's most comfortable for her. You want to give her tips and tricks for understanding infant behavior. Many teens haven't experienced that many infants in their life. Babies just aren't as common as they used to be. And so you have a lot more experience dealing with these tiny stressful things than they do. And so if you can provide them any type of understanding for what their baby is doing, that would be so helpful for them. You also want to provide anticipatory guidance for dealing with growth spurts and engorgement once they're home. These teens aren't going to just stumble upon resources, and so if you know that they're going to encounter some difficulty when they get home, so any anticipatory guidance that you have would be great for them. Teens are also unlikely to seek out help if any problems arise. So you want to make sure that you have follow-up procedures in place to support her, to reach out to her first. And then you also want to provide assistance for managing the transition back to school. If you can contact the school or maybe counsel somebody at the school to help ease that transition, that would be fantastic. That was something where in our grant where we found difficulties that the school was just wasn't aware of how breastfeeding worked, and so we had to do some teaching about what was required. And then let's talk about emotional support. Most teen mothers feel insecurity about all of the new choices in life that they're faced with. So it makes sense for the teen mom to be insecure about her choice to breastfeed and the management of it. And additionally, she's broken one of society's taboos, and she might be getting overt and covert messages that she's worthless. So it's very important that you treat her like she is worth your time and that she's going to be successful at this. You want to recognize and praise her efforts, and your encouragement will give her the confidence to continue through difficult times. You also want to make sure to target the teen's mother and partner so they can support her. As the director of the daycare center said, the partners are involved in many cases, and the teen will really value what her mother and the partner have to say. So if you can get them involved and get them on board and have them give her consistent messaging too, that would just be such a great area of support that you could give her. You also want to create a sense of privacy as she's learning to breastfeed. These teens are just coming into their womanly bodies, and they might not feel comfortable having the door open and the curtains wide open. So you want to make sure that she feels safe and comfortable as she's learning. You also want to be there to be present during the feedings. Even if you're just sitting in the room filling out paperwork, it's really important that she feels supported and that she feels that somebody's there that she can ask questions to. An adult mom might come out and find you and say, hey, I've got some questions, will you come over? Or might ring the bell, but the teens aren't going to do that. They don't want to put you out. So you want to make sure that you're there and available for them when they need you. And also, of course, it's very important that you stay calm, relaxed, and consistent during any difficulties that they might encounter. And this teen said, if I can breastfeed, anyone can. So if you have any questions, my email is down at the bottom. Please feel free to contact me. Thank you for listening.